Hello, time for TST, Thought Shifting Thursdays.
Hello, everyone.
So here we are. So the title is, what is the most important self-improvement? I think that's what it says. Self-improvement practice, self-growth practice, spiritual growth practice. What is the most important? Let's see, Instagram's telling our followers about this right now, so no one's on yet. They'll be on in a moment. But the answer to the question is...
What?
Self-love. You knew that. You just wanted me to say it.
Okay.
So what does self-love mean to you?
Loving myself unconditionally.
You win the prize. So... You know, I wanted to talk about this, and we've talked about self-love before, we've talked about self-care, but I don't think it's talked about or emphasized enough, especially in spiritual teaching, in self-growth. I mean, in some venues it is. I mean, going back to Louise Hay, right? All about self-love. Many teachers, that has been their main emphasis. But like, I'm a minister in Centers for Spiritual Living, and I coach clients and even ministers. If someone's successful, maybe new ministers, if someone's successful as a minister, they have to have self-love, because if you don't, you're going to burn out. It just isn't going to work. And actually, you'll burn out in almost any profession if you don't have self-love. So it's kind of a pet peeve of mine, or I'll get up on a soapbox and talk about, I think in our teaching in Centers for Spiritual Living, we don't emphasize it enough, because I'll find practitioners who don't have a high level of self-love, even though they've gone through 4 years of training, 6 years of training for a minister, new ministers that don't have it, because the teaching emphasizes this is how you manifest what you want in life. But the truth is, we can't manifest any more than what we feel we deserve, and what we feel we deserve is completely and totally
absolutely
akin to how much we love ourselves.
Absolutely.
So how do you know you love yourself?
How do I know that I love myself?
How do you know you're loving yourself in any given moment of time?
I was just talking to my mom, who's the wisest woman I know. And
Lucky you are.
I was asking her how she came to forgive her mother, who treated her so poorly. She hid her, abandoned her, came back for her 7 years later, and still she found a way to forgive her. And because she forgave her, her life has changed. Her life has flourished. She was asked, we were talking about who taking drugs and mushrooms and different medicines, plant medicines, to get to that place where she's at. People have to go to therapy forever. My mom, I don't think, has ever gone to a therapist. And what it is that she is the epiphany of self-love. She loves herself. I believe that that's what made all this stuff happen for her. It's loving herself unconditionally and forgiving. Because if you have all that pain in your heart, you can't give any of this love to anybody.
Right.
So,
I'm curious, when did she forgive her mother? How long ago? She has always said to me, she's my mother. Why will I hate her? Why will I have resentment towards her? And never thought about not loving her, regardless of what she did to her. It's amazing. I'm just smiling because, I said we're going to talk about self-love. I don't know what we're talking about. I don't know what to say. And then you talk more than me. I said, don't worry, I'll talk most of it.
Well, it's just because I was just coming out of this wonderful
synchronous
conversation with my mother. So the way that I love myself is really to forgive and forget. I try not to hold grudges and if I do, not for very long. I just think about it, I get pissed off, and I'm done. I'm like, okay. Or I talk, I write it down, and I'm done with it. If you hold all this shit inside of you, it's just not self-love. It's not serving you any purpose.
And
Anything.
the most important place to apply self-forgiveness is with oneself. You're not going to, probably not going to
Right.
forgive anyone else of anything major if you haven't forgiven yourself
Exactly.
for what we have done in our lifetime.
Yes.
And interesting you mentioned medicine, because I wanted to bring addiction into it. I was coaching a client today, and the phrase came to me, and probably many people have probably said this before. It's probably not that enlightened, but I just hadn't heard this phrasing before. Is the antidote to addiction is self-love, because in addiction, whatever it is, whether it be a substance, whether it be sex, whether it be
Gambling.
food, right? Gambling. All of these things are we're trying in a very temporal way to
Love ourselves.
to feel good,
To
right?
feel good.
And
Yes.
it's really it's not love. It takes the place of love, right?
Right.
And so as long as we continue to look for love outside of ourselves, then we're addicted, right? The antidote is to love ourselves more. Now there's a question, I've said this before in our videos, and if you know me, you know this one as well. Let's see, still telling, I don't know if we're even on Instagram, still telling our followers,
That's okay. Don't worry about it.
but you can get it on Facebook too. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you love yourself? And I'm really quite amazed at how honest the answers are. I mean, I've gotten 2s, I've gotten 1s, I recently got a 0, right? And that's someone who's gone through a lot of spiritual training. How does
Understand.
someone go through spiritual training and not love themselves more than a 0? And, that person's finances are in the dumps, right? Always have been. It is the key to everything. That's why I say it's the most important spiritual self-growth practice, self-love, because I often say, if we could study all of the most, we could have read every self-help book that's ever been written. We could have studied all of the sacred scriptures of the world. We could be masters in understanding the principles of law of attraction. But if we don't love ourselves, nothing's going to happen, right? Our lives are going to be in chaos. On the other hand, one who loves themselves unconditionally at a 10 or even a 9, all of the principles in self-help, in all of the ancient texts, come into play naturally, easily, effortlessly when one loves. And we all know people who have studied nothing but live charmed lives. Why?
Yes.
They love themselves. Your mom being the perfect example.
Yes.
Cycle back around to that, right?
I'm just so happy that it's rubbed on me. Just a little bit, at
Right.
least. Yes, I can never. Well, I'm hoping that
Honest.
I could be like her.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you love yourself?
I was just thinking that. I love myself a lot.
I know you do.
But I could love myself more. I think an 8 is probably where I am.
It's probably very, 8 to 9 sometimes, right? And here's something about relationship, is I have found in coaching people that, because you find people who might be at an 8, but their partners are at a 3 or a 4. I had a client once who, he was a 9, identified himself as a 9, and his partner's a 2. And the interesting thing
How
is,
does that work?
well, right, it doesn't work well, right?
Yes.
And it doesn't work well for the 9, and doesn't work well for the 2.
Right.
Because the 2 is constantly comparing her or himself to the 9.
Right.
And in fact, in that case, the 2 had told the 9 that being with you triggers my alcoholism.
Wow.
Because your life is going on so well. So that 2 might actually be better off with a 4. I mean, if you're below a 5, I say if you're 5 or below, the most important thing you can do is raise that number. If it's below a 10, there's room for improvement.
Absolutely.
And so it's going to be a rocky road if you're below 5. But if you're with someone who's a 2 and you're raising it and they don't raise, you can stay with that person, but it's not going to be filled with joy. It's going to be a rocky road.
Yeah, it's going to be a struggle. I see it.
So what else did we want to say about self-love? Maybe practices. How can we increase self-love if it is low, or even if we want to raise it, if it's and make it higher? The affirmation I give to people is, I love myself no matter what. Because the true test of self-love is not loving myself when we just did our best thought-shifting Thursday ever. It's when we do a thought-shifting Thursday that we just think, oh man, that stunk. I don't think that's ever happened. We've had a couple that aren't as good, but or when I've bombed, doing a talk, and whenever I give this to a client, instantly go to that one time that I completely bombed giving a lecture, and I'll never forget that, right? And because I'd already been practicing self-love for a long time, I thought, wow, this is an opportunity to love myself in spite of bombing. The true test of self-love is not loving ourselves when I just made an investment that brought back $50,000. If I can love myself when I make a mistake in an investment, which I did last year.
$300,000.
Well, it wasn't that much. For the 100,000, that's the true test of self-love. So the interesting thing is that we can only exponentially raise self-love in times of challenge. So if we simply reframe challenge then as an opportunity to exponentially raise self-love, then it becomes an opportunity rather than something that is bringing us down, right? It's simply reframing it.
Yes.
The true test of self-love is not loving myself when my partner is just praising me for how wonderful I am. It's when she's cutting me down. Or when I say something that hurts her feelings and she gets angry at me. Can I love myself in that moment? That's the true test of self-love. That's where the opportunity to exponentially raise my self-love is. What else?
That's great. Do little things for yourself to prove that you are worth it. You are a loving person. If no one else is telling you, figure out a way to tell it to yourself. You are loved. You are worth it. And keep saying that, and that will increase your number.
Yeah, and that reminds me, and I say this all the time, that the most powerful demonstration of self-love to ourselves is doing what brings us joy. I've done a lot of videos, we've done a lot of videos about living in joy. My bringing spiritual growth down to the simplest definition is when we simply are living from an inner experience of freedom and joy and love, everything else in life works out. And the way to nurture that inner experience is actually to do what brings us joy, right? So because if I'm doing what I'm doing in my life because of a should or a have to, guarantee you life isn't fun. So oftentimes we do choose what brings us joy, but we forget about the joy for which we are doing these things, right? Am I meditating because it brings me joy, or because I think I should or I have to, right? Am I
working because it brings me joy? It might.
Well, that's the thing.
You could have
I
joy.
do.
Yes.
I mean, everything
It
I do
brings
in
you
day
money.
brings me
It
joy.
brings you money, and that brings you joy.
And that exactly where I was going to go with it, right?
Yeah.
You might think, oh, I have to go to this job I hate, right? I happen to love my job, but if you focus on what are all the paycheck that I get and all the things that allows me to do, and you're going to work and focusing on that is the joy, then your work is going to be more joyful, right?
Yes.
And here's the thing. We'll probably close with this, although I always Even after you go like this, I still keep talking sometimes because you talk so much in the beginning. So, if I'm going to work, if I'm practicing doing things that bring me joy, right? Then the mindset that starts to develop is, if I'm going to my job and I'm even focusing on, oh, this is the joy I'm getting out of it, the paycheck and all the things it allows me to do, but I still don't like my job. Eventually, or very soon, I'm going to come to the conclusion that, wow, because I've been proving to myself I deserve to have a joyful life, it'll occur to me that, why am I working in a job that doesn't bring me joy? And so the more joyful I become in my life, the more I am going to then choose experiences, people, relationships, jobs, things that bring me more joy. It has centrifugal force to it, right? Like a snowball going down the hill. The more self-love I have, the more I choose to do joyful things. The more joyful things I choose to do, the more self-love I have, and the more increasing joy I allow into my life.
And then I see this ball rolling.
And getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
That's it.
That's it. That's how it works. So let's see. Jamie Lula joined. You know, it took a while for Instagram to come on. So, but as soon as we turn this off, you'll be able to access it. So good to see you, Jamie Lula. Oh, your performance at Center for Spiritual Living. I mean at Spiritual. What are we called?
SUM.
SUM. Spiritual Unity Movement.
Yes.
At the Granada Hills Center for Spiritual Living. Was just off the charts, amazing. I've seen you many times at Asilomar, different CSLs, CSL Simi Valley, and it was just off the chart. You just touched my heart so much. You are such a heart-filled person, and so Karina's giving me the sign. It's time to sign off. So listen, give us a like, give a share to anyone you think can value from increasing self-love today, and once again, you'll be able to access this on Instagram once we sign off. YouTube, Facebook, wherever you frequent. So we love you, and we will see you next week.
I hope.
End video. Come over here. Why don't you do the Okay, no, that doesn't work. Where did that cursor go?
God.
Well, you're not helping me.
I don't